Go for it. Maybe you're right. Now or never. I hate you. I love you. I forgive you. We know that powerful sentiments can be conveyed using very few words. These phrases can be empty or they can be brimming with emotion. They can mean nothing or they can mean everything. The first time a teenager says, "I hate you," to the parents who have nurtured and raised her, these words cut like a knife. The first time we hear the words, "I love you," coming from somebody other than an immediate family member, it feels like our world has just expanded in unimaginable ways. And after we have wounded a loved one, if we are lucky enough to hear the words, "I forgive you," uttered from our loved one's mouth, we are blessed with emotions of relief. Yes, words connected to sincere emotions are powerful. Like many of you, when I heard that a gunman opened fire at the Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina, killing 9 people engaged in a prayer service, I was shocked, horrified, and heartbroken. In the days following this tragedy, it became abundantly clear that the gunman acted from a place of unbridled hatred. Just 2 days after the shooting, at a bond hearing in court, family members of the 9 parishioners killed addressed the gunman. Let's listen to their words. Nadine Collier, daughter of Ethel Lance, said, "I forgive you. You took something very precious away from me. I will never get to talk to her ever again. I will never be able to hold her again, but I forgive you and have mercy on your soul." Felicia Sanders, mother of Tywanza Sanders, shared, "We welcomed you Wednesday night in our Bible study with open arms. You have killed some of the most beautiful people I know. Every fiber in my body hurts and I'll never be the same. Tywanza Sanders was my son. Tywanza Sanders was my hero. May God have mercy on you." Bethany Middleton Brown, sister of DePayne Middleton Doctor, said, "I acknowledge that I am very angry. But one thing that DePayne always enjoined in our family is she taught me that we are the family that love built. We have no room for hating, so we have to forgive. I pray, God, on your soul." To be sure, these words are powerful. But I was almost just as shocked to hear these words as forgiveness as I was to hear the news of the shooting itself. For these people to have forgiven the man who murdered their loved ones mere days after the crime, without so much as an apology or an admission of wrongdoing from the gunman, seems to not only go against the grain, but also feels contrary to my Jewish instincts. Why is that? Why does forgiveness in this case feel foreign? What can we learn from this display of forgiveness? One of the greatest Jewish thinkers to have ever lived, Moses Maimonides, wrote a guide on teshuvah, on returning or repenting. In it lies one of the most well-known Jewish texts on forgiveness. Maimonides teaches, "When the person who wronged you asks for forgiveness, you should forgive that person with a complete heart and a willing spirit. Even if he aggravated and wronged you severely, lo tikom velo titor, you should not seek revenge nor bear a grudge." However, the gunman certainly did not ask for forgiveness. He did not atone, nor did he repent, and he certainly did not attempt to return to God's ways. So how can it be that these people, these family members of the victims of this terrible crime, forgave the perpetrator? There's a story that's told from over a century ago. The rabbi of Brisk, a scholar of extraordinary renown, revered also for his gentleness of character, entered a train in Warsaw to return to his hometown. The rabbi, a man of slight stature and of no distinction of appearance, found a seat in a compartment. There he was surrounded by traveling salesmen who, as soon as the train began to move, started to play cards. As the game progressed, the excitement increased. The rabbi remained aloof and absorbed in meditation. Such aloofness was annoying to the rest of the people. "Hey, you," one of them called to the rabbi, "why don't you join our game?" The rabbi answered, "Sorry, I never play cards." As time passed, the rabbi's aloofness became even more annoying, and one of those present said to him, "Either you join us or leave the compartment." Shortly thereafter, he took the rabbi by his collar and pushed him out of the compartment. For several hours, the rabbi had to stand on his feet until he reached his destination, the city of Brisk. Brisk also happened to be the destination of that salesman. The rabbi left the train, where he was immediately surrounded by his admirers, welcoming him and shaking his hand. "Who is that man?" asked the salesman. "You don't know him? That's the famous rabbi of Brisk." The salesman's heart sank. He had not realized who he had offended. That night, the salesman went to the synagogue for minyan. After the prayers, he approached the rabbi. "Rabbi," he said, "I am not a rich man. I have, however, savings of 300 rubles. I will give them to you for charity if you will forgive me." The rabbi replied, "I cannot forgive you, because our tradition teaches that we may not forgive people for crimes committed against others. You did not know who I was at the time that you offended me. You really owe an apology to the common man you so callously mistreated." This story highlights the teachings of our tradition, which say that while forgiveness is almost always a virtue, some things are beyond our power to forgive. We know that all human life belongs to God. Therefore, according to Jewish tradition, not even the family members of those killed can grant forgiveness to the perpetrator. And yet, I find their statements of forgiveness shared in that courtroom to be nothing short of inspirational. So, what happens when we are not talking about extreme transgressions, about murder or child abuse or the Holocaust, but rather more common transgressions that wound us? What do we do when someone has stolen peace of mind or safety from us, or when someone has simply misunderstood or offended us? In thinking back to what Maimonides taught, we know that when somebody comes to us asking forgiveness, we are to grant it. But what are we to do if the person who has hurt us doesn't even know it? What are we to do if that person never offers an apology? Let's turn to the story of two brothers, Jacob and Esau. Twins, though Esau was a bit older than Jacob. Given the custom of the day, their father Isaac's birthright and blessing rightfully belonged to Esau. On a particularly hot day, when Esau had been out in the field hunting, his brother Jacob was home preparing a stew. Esau came home famished and asked for some stew. Jacob agreed, but in exchange for Esau's birthright. Esau was so hungry that he sold his birthright for that bowl of stew. Sometime later, when their father Isaac was on his deathbed, Jacob pretended to be Esau and tricked Isaac into giving him Esau's blessing. When Esau found out that his younger brother now had not only his birthright, but his blessing as well, he broke into an exceedingly bitter howl. Jacob knew that he had crossed a line, and so he fled from home. Decades later, When both Jacob and Esau had become husbands and fathers, the two brothers were to meet again, though this time with both of their camps. Jacob's camp was sizable, though it was nothing compared to Esau's camp, which had 400 men. Jacob was understandably concerned that Esau's camp would wage a battle of revenge against his own. So Jacob prepared gifts for Esau, and for safe measure, he divided his own camp so that they would not all be killed should a fight ensue. When the moment came for Jacob and Esau to finally meet, Esau ran towards Jacob at full speed. He then embraced him and kissed his neck. Esau had every right to exact revenge from his brother Jacob, who had wronged him. Jacob even expected this revenge, but Esau had let his anger go. Without Jacob ever apologizing, repenting, or atoning for hurting his brother so deeply, Esau forgave him and moved on with his own life. Esau forgave Jacob. Britain's former chief rabbi Jonathan Sacks teaches, "Forgiveness is more than a technique of conflict resolution. It is a stunningly original strategy. In a world without forgiveness, evil begets evil, harm generates harm, and there is no way short of exhaustion or forgetfulness of breaking the sequence. Forgiveness breaks the chain. It introduces into the logic of interpersonal encounter the unpredictability of grace. The unpredictability of grace. It represents a decision not to do what instinct and passion urge us to do. It answers hate with refusal to hate, animosity with generosity. Few more daring ideas have ever entered the human situation. Forgiveness means that we are not destined endlessly to repay the grievances of yesterday. It is the ability to live with the past without being held captive by the past. It would not be an exaggeration to say that forgiveness is the most compelling testimony to human freedom. It is about the action that is not reaction. It is the refusal to be defined by circumstance. It represents our ability to change course, reframe the narrative of the past, and create an unexpected set of possibilities for the future. In our society, we don't often see the kind of forgiveness that Esau gave to Jacob. Instead, we are more familiar with stories like this one. Rabbi Harold Kushner tells of a woman who came to his congregation to see him. She was a single mother, divorced, working to support herself and her 3 young children. She said to Rabbi Kushner, "Since my husband walked out on us, every month is a struggle to pay our bills. I have to tell my kids we have no money to go to the movies while he's living it up with his new wife in another state. How can you tell me to forgive him?" Rabbi Kushner answered, "I'm not asking you to forgive him because what he did was acceptable. It wasn't. It was mean and it was selfish. I'm asking you to forgive because he doesn't deserve the power to live in your head and turn you into an angry, bitter woman. You're not hurting him by holding on to that resentment, but you're hurting yourself. To put it differently, to hold on to anger and resentment is like drinking poison and then wondering why your enemy isn't dying. For as Maimonides teaches, lo tikom velo titor, we should not seek revenge, nor should we bear a grudge. Maimonides is actually quoting here from a verse in Leviticus that we'll be reading during our afternoon service. The first part of the verse is lesser known than the second part. The Torah verse says, lo tikom velo titor, you shall not seek revenge, nor bear a grudge against members of your people. Ve'ahavta l're'echa kamocha. Rather, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am Adonai. Rabbi Sharon Brous teaches, the reason these two seemingly unrelated ideas are paired with one another is because what happens to us when we hold a grudge in our hearts? We're not able to love fully. And I don't mean love the perpetrator or the offender fully. I don't think we ever need to or ought to. I mean, we're not able to love fully. If you're walking around with the poison of hurt that somebody else caused you, you cannot love your children fully, and you cannot love your friends fully, and you cannot love your partner fully. We can't love each other fully, because that kind of pain in the heart diminishes who we are and what we're capable of. It makes us unable to love fully as God intended us to love. And so what we learn from the family members of the victims of the church shooting in Charleston, and from Esau, and from the woman in Rabbi Kushner's office, is that forgiveness is an act of grace. Grace is what occurs when we are kind to each other and to ourselves for no reason. President Obama spoke of grace when he eulogized Reverend Clementa C. Pinckney, who was killed in the shooting in Charleston. He said, "This whole week I've been reflecting on this idea of grace, the grace of the families who lost loved ones, the grace that Reverend Pinckney would preach about in his sermons, the grace described in one of my favorite Christian hymnals, the one we all know, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see." Obama continues, "We don't earn grace. We're all sinners. We don't deserve it, but God gives it to us anyway, and we choose how to receive it. We choose how to honor it." Allow me to put Obama's words into a Jewish context. Avinu malkeinu chanenu va'anenu ki ein banu ma'asim. Aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed v'choshienu. Avinu malkeinu, be gracious and answer us, for we have little merit. Treat us generously and with kindness, and be our help. You see, powerful sentiments can be conveyed with very few words. I pray this Yom Kippur that God will be gracious and grant forgiveness to each of us. I pray, too, that we will choose to honor God's grace by being gracious to ourselves and to each other, granting forgiveness. Ken Yehi Ratzon.